Welcome to the Backups.
What up? I am Timbo B. Davis, and I coach football, and he is
Connor B. Feckley, and I coach football.
And that's convenient because this is a football podcast and on Zoom with the interview. We don't know where we end up on these Zoom boxes.
Know.
Sometimes you're over here. I think you're here, but sometimes you're here. Dude, we just got done with one of my favorite interviews of the show. Coach Austin Silvoy out of Austin Peay State University, Tennessee, right? I guess it's your last name.
Tennessee. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Really great interview.
I was gonna say I didn't realize that either until we were actually down there at that Middle Tennessee conference, and I saw Austin Peay stuff everywhere as we were driving through Clarksville, and I was like, oh, well, that's where that school is. I didn't realize that until about a year ago. But
and Austin Peay is an exciting program. They got a young coach. They're offensively they're on the front edge of things, and we know Coach Silvoy actually as clients with Tony Franklin. We visited him when he was at Middle Tennessee for years. So it was a pretty cool deal being able to catch up with them now at a new place, new digs, and just hearing his perspective on ball.
No, absolutely. Like you said, hearing that transition from starting the year with COVID, in one program, and then, finishing it, or, as we're getting to the end, hopefully, with a new program, and just to get the different things that went in with all that transitioning process. Just awesome things from him.
Details and identity. That's what's ahead. We'll roll the interview and we'll be back when it's done. All right. What's up, everybody? I'm Timbo B. Davis. I coach football, and that is
Connor B. Feckley, and I coach football.
That's convenient because this is a football coaches podcast. We have an awesome guest today. I'm super stoked about this one. Coach Austin Silvoy, receivers coach, co-offensive coordinator at Austin Peay State University. Coach, how are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, and glad I could hop on with you guys.
This is awesome. I'm really excited. So last time we ran into each other was at the Tony Franklin Clinic in Middle Tennessee. That was super awesome. Your presentation, we'll get into that a little bit here. I love that presentation specifically. But what I want to hear is tell me a little bit about your journey. You've played ball, you've coached, you were part of a startup of a program. Tell me about your journey to a Division I college football coach.
Oh, wow. So, honestly, when I was playing ball at Troy University, I was playing for Coach Franklin. I didn't really have any influences in my life that really pushed me to want to be a coach. I had the coaches around me that influenced me, but the thought in my mind of becoming a coach just never really was around until my senior year. And I get hurt. And so I'm the starter that's hurt, that can't play. And there's a freshman behind me that basically needs my help. And so, I'm at practice, hobbling around, doing the best I can. And I start, helping this freshman out, and you get to see him take strides, and he gets better and better each week. And I was like, this is coaching. This feels great. I'm able to affect this guy's life and help him build his potential. And so that's what kind of lit the light bulb up in my head. And so I had a talk with Neil Brown, who's now the head coach at West Virginia, and Kenny Edenfield, who's the former OC at South Alabama. And I said, man, I want to get into coaching. They said, well, buckle up. I hope you're ready. So they kind of led me down some different avenues, and started off, I ended up at University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond, Oklahoma as my first gig as a wide receivers GA. Spent a year out there, and then saw an ad on Football Scoop about a startup program in Melbourne, Florida. And I'm a Florida guy. And so I saw the opportunity to, first of all, get back closer to home, get back closer to the beach. And then just the excitement of starting a program was awesome. I thought that would be great, starting from the ground floor, being able to build your own tradition, your own culture. So took a leap of faith, got an opportunity to go down there as the wide receivers coach. and spent 5 years there. Was an awesome experience. Wouldn't have traded it for the world. And by the 5th year, I had been working with Coach Franklin at all the camps and, making my impact there, and got the opportunity to go to Middle Tennessee and learn from Coach Franklin, and definitely one of the best experiences of my life, being able to work under a guy that I played for. And Coach Franklin was such a great mentor to me, not only football wise, but life wise. And I learned so much about so much about this career and what it takes to be great, and the daily grind and the daily struggles that you go through, and to be able to overcome all that and affect kids' lives throughout the whole process. But and so once that opportunity, kind of wound up there at the end of last season, Coach Walden at Austin Peay reached out to me, and I definitely wanted to further my career and have a little bit more say in the offense. And he presented me with the co-offense coordinator position, and got here in December, and man, just hit the ground running and had a great spring season. So it's been quite a journey, but I can say that, I ended up with a lot of great people and learned a lot of great things, and I'm just excited about where I'm at right now.
I got to follow up. That's awesome. You saw an ad on Football Scoop for a startup D2 in Florida, and granted the geography works out, but that's epic. You just went for it.
Just went for it. And there's a funny story that kind of goes behind that. So, I don't know about ads these days, because I never really browse Football Scoop like I used to. But there's a lot of ads that say no phone calls, please. Just send your resume. And Chase Harp, who's the OC at Brunswick High School in Georgia, he was the OC at Central Oklahoma. And I told him about the opportunity. He's like, "Oh man, you got to do that. Like, you got to go after that one." I'm like, "Okay, I'll send my resume." He goes, "No, you got to call right now." I'm like, "Listen, Chase, they said no phone calls. I'm going to go protocol on this one." He's like, "You're not leaving my office until you call." And I was like, "Okay." So I called. The OC, Jason Martin, picks up, and I tell him exactly who I am and why I'm calling. The first thing he says is, "Oh, you couldn't read the ad? It said no phone calls." and so, it started off on an awkward note, but it ended up working out for me. So just a funny story that went along with how I ended up at Florida Tech.
That's awesome, Coach. And like you said, you got a chance to go over there as a brand new program. What was it like building your room from scratch, being able to go out there and, recruit the guys to kind of fit a culture that you were trying to, not only, fit in your position room, but like I said, starting from scratch, the very basics. What was that like? And then having a little bit more experience now, would you go about that any differently today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I still was fresh, into my career when I got to Florida Tech. So I took a lot of guidance from the coaches that were on staff there, but walking into that situation and looking back on it now, it was like, being an artist. You get to paint. You got a blank slate. Like you're staring at a blank slate, and you get to paint the picture any way that you want to. And in that situation, at that school, it was a different type of program, because first of all, it was Division II, and second of all, it was a high academic Division II. It was an engineering school. So, building that room personnel wise was a little bit different, but identity wise, we had the picture that we wanted to paint, of an intelligent room that was going to be fundamentally sound, was going to be disciplined, was going to show up to work every day, kind of the blue collar mentality, but also guys that wanted to be different, wanted to step into the unknown of a new program. And that was kind of our identity in that room, was basically just, groundbreakers. Guys that wanted to start on the ground floor and weren't afraid. Some guys that had chips on their shoulders and wanted to prove a lot. So that was really the identity that we created and built off of when we first got to Florida Tech.
That's awesome. And then moving on eventually. So you're 5 years at Florida Tech, and then from Florida Tech, you went to Middle, correct? So carrying over that time, and I gotta say, like for me, one of the better presentations I've seen was when you designed a receiver from ground up. And so I'm thinking about that, like designing a receiver room. And you talk about groundbreakers, and we took some notes. And I think what I'm most fired up and interested in is how do you go about crafting the receiver room? You have a mix of personalities, you have all sorts of things there, and you're going from D2, but then into the Division I spotlight here at Middle, and you got a system that's heavily oriented on the receiver play. Tell me a little bit about the identity in that room.
Coach Franklin, ever since I was playing, has set a tone about pretty much the identity of our offense. And so, it starts at the top with Coach Franklin when we got to Middle Tennessee and what our identity was going to be. And it kind of just trickles into everybody's position rooms. But the demand for details, I think is the first point of emphasis when we were developing an identity in our position groups. There's not a lot of room for anything other than what we're asking for. And the demand for details was always the first point of emphasis in who we were going to be as a group. We were going to demand that we did exactly what we were told to do every single rep. And it was life or death. We tried to make it that important. And we wanted to be that disciplined in everything that we did and take pride in being different. We did things a lot different in our receiver room, like starting off with our stances. You look across the FBS level, there's not a lot of teams that line up and get in a stance like we do. And so we were different from that aspect of details, but you watch the four guys that were on the field, and everybody was synonymous. There was not a lot of difference in how they started off. There was not a lot of difference in how they finished, how they looked the ball in, how they carried the ball. And so that identity of discipline and being detail oriented based upon what we were asking you, what we were training you to do. I think that was really our identity in our receiver group at Middle Tennessee.
You make a great point, Coach, talking about the detail and how important it is to stay with that, especially for the receiver group. And now you got all your guys doing that. Everyone's listening. Everyone's working hard and focusing on details. In the big receiver group room, everybody likes to get their stats and get their touchdowns and get their catches. How do you keep everybody happy?
I don't think you can. It's obviously going to be an emotional roller coaster throughout the season. And it depends on how old you are, the experiences that you've had already. I've dealt with, I think the freshmen are the easiest to deal with because, playing time is just big to them versus getting any stats. And being able to put those guys in any type of role in a game to keep them happy. But I think in order to keep happiness throughout the room on a general basis is, just the fact that everybody's role is just as important. And that was an emphasis that we talked about a lot, whether you're catching 70 balls like Ty Lee did his senior season, or you caught 25, there might be one catch out of those 25 that was more important than all 70 of Ty Lee's. And so really just emphasizing that your role is important, no matter how big or how small, and making sure that you did your role the best you could to help the team. And so I think that's kind of the general emphasis of how we kept happiness in our room is just making sure that everybody was aligned to the fact that your role was going to help the team, no matter how big or how small.
Now at Austin Peay, tell me about the culture of your specific, the makeup of your group, a little bit about your offense as far as like, what type, are you looking for the same type of bodies as you did at middle? Are you looking for tell me some of the nuances there to that room. And as a receiver yourself, I got to ask, I should ask this right away. What was your favorite play in that offense at Troy as a receiver?
Oh, my favorite play was Y cross. I pride myself in getting over top of the mic, getting in that window faster than anybody could in the country. And so that was hands down my favorite play. But as far as the offense here at Austin Peay and what we're kind of looking for personnel wise, really is just based off of speed. We haven't really concentrated on measurables as far as height and things like that go, but our emphasis is on speed and our style. We call it a vertical threat tempo offense. We want to take shots and create explosive plays. And so we have a heavy emphasis in recruiting on speed and speed alone.
That makes sense. Flying around down south down there, you got to get guys running fast. So there you go. But Coach, I was curious. I did a little, as I was reading through your, the bio and looking into you a little bit, I noticed that you got your first master's degree in secondary education. And then your second master's is in computer education. And so I'm kind of curious, were you a little ahead of the curve there on the whole COVID thing? Did you have a good idea about what was coming in the world? Or
I did have a little bit of a background on some educational technologies that we could use during the COVID quarantine. And technology has always kind of been a passion of mine. And it was a coincidence that they offered that at Florida Tech, and just got to, work a lot with like learning management systems, which helped me guide my players through their learning management systems, that they're using at the university, whether it's Blackboard or Canvas and things like that. So it really was a godsend that I was able to get that second master's degree in that field because it definitely has allowed me to teach a little bit more efficiently, especially in these times.
And that's what I was just going to roll into, is that being a little bit more tech savvy than maybe some other coaches. How do you utilize technology or more social media stuff to help help the identity, the culture in your room, and help your players out? Is it kind of more along the same lines of what you were saying, or is there anything else?
Well, social media is so big. I think with our identity, and I think it helps with our identity of showcasing our identity. Whether I'm posting a picture of fundamentals and details and coaching points, I always want to be able to highlight those guys for exemplifying the identity that we talk about on a daily basis, throughout whatever we're emphasizing. But social media has been the biggest technology, I think, in being able to reinforce that and say, you do things right and you identify with what we're trying to do, the whole world gets to see. So everybody likes to have their face in the limelight. So that social media has been a big help from that aspect.
And then the connection with the kids then at the same time, have you been able to feel connected with your guys? Like, were you guys on a point where you were stuck on Zoom for team meetings and stuff like that? Or tell me a little bit.
Yeah. So I was able to meet the group face to face at a morning workout before I actually was officially started. So I got to see them briefly, but after that, it was straight Zoom meetings, for about 2 weeks. And to be honest, that was a struggle, not being able to spend that face-to-face time with these guys. And even getting here in December and January, the time that you spend, off the field, going out to eat, hanging out at the house, like just, it's not as easy to have that type of fellowship anymore when you're trying to keep your personnel safe, keep everybody inside of your bubble. So I definitely say that was a tough experience in transitioning from a group that I had spent 5 years with to a new group that I was only really be able to communicate at first through Zoom. And then I had to make up for lost time by just time at the facility and not being able to spend it with them off the field or just hanging out in the field house because, as soon as practice is over, we get everybody out. So there's no, constant exposure of guys next to each other, whether it's in the locker room or the team room or meeting room. So that was definitely a struggle this year.
So this come up with a lot of us, I think, is the lack of that locker room, the offices, having those good conversations. I know for high school guys, a lot of guys have said it felt like we were like a club season almost. It was like show up to the field with your mask and your cleats and let's go. What are some of those things? What's something that you're like, that had a lot of value when we're allowed to do it? So when we're back full go, everything's good, locker rooms, what's something like you're looking forward to the most? Like just diving into it and be like, let's make that even better because we see how much we missed it during COVID time.
Yeah, I think it's eating together, like getting in the cafeteria or just having a meal in the team room because, we would have to give them a bag to go. But there's nothing like sitting down with the guys over a great meal and just being able to spend that time and just, catching up, shooting shop, just talking about daily life things, and getting away from football a little bit. But I really think that's the one thing I miss the most is just being able to sit down, and and not have to yell over a table because we're 15 feet away, and having conversations between tables, but just really, really being able to sit down and have a meal with the guys. That's the one thing that I miss the most through this COVID deal.
But no, the meal thing is a really, really real deal. For anybody listening out there, get your team meals going. That's important.
Well, Coach, again, the last question I have for you here was just talking about, you said, building an identity and a culture. And then like as we go into a new school there and having a new head coach, how do you mix the culture of what the head coach wants with, what you think is very important for the wide receiver room to have? Is there any things that clash, or are there any things that, you just got to have no matter what, in the sense of, how you like to run your room, or do you always try to align it with what the head coach wants most, obviously, which is important?
Our head coach does a good job of letting us be the head coach of our position groups. As long as we are in alignment with the team culture. And me and Coach Walden have seen eye to eye on a lot of things. There's not too many things or anything that I've been presented by him culture wise or even fundamental and technique wise that have gone against anything that I believe in. The one thing that I love about him that he's preached about identity to our team, which I thought was the most important before we even talked about identity in our room, was just our identities as human beings in Jesus Christ, and how that identity is going to be more valuable than any identity we're ever going to try to create in our position groups, and how football is going to be gone. Football is going to have to end sometime. And, we build this identity of football player. And when it's done, we're lost and we're like, who am I? And Coach Walden, that's the first thing that he really hit on is our group is your identity is in Jesus Christ. You're a child of God, and salvation is what we're all striving for. And I think living to serve him and giving him glory in everything that we do, and knowing that no matter what happens and if we're playing football or not playing football, we're loved by him, and he will never forsake us. And that was the one big thing that really excited me about working with Coach Walden, is the emphasis of that as our identity as a team before we even talked about our identity in position groups.
So important that our identity is beyond just what happens when that scoreboard turns off, because that light switch turns off pretty fast.
As life goes on, things happen throughout the season, that we'll talk about as a team and just kind of relate to everybody. But I think that's something that we do is we constantly meet as a group throughout the week and just try to reconnect to God and listen to his message and learn from it on a daily basis.
It's what was remarkable to me, and hearing you talk about it, is like football, this thing that I think Coach Franklin says this all the time. It's like most coaches are going to care more about the sport of football than the players that you coach many times. Because, hey, we're still in it. It's some of it, our livelihood. But I'll tell you what, there were some moments where it was like, it can be gone like that. And it was just, this is really eye-opening. I didn't know what to do when we weren't playing on whatever that opening day was. And that opening day came and went. We did get a season in, but I'll never forget what should have been opening day. That was a kind of a hard day for me. I had to look into my identity quite a bit and go like, oh, okay, this is really, really fleeting, this football thing. So
yeah, it almost seemed like the end of the world for a lot of people I know. Just the world is the sky's falling, and yeah, you just got to hone yourself back in, especially this situation where nobody knew what to do. There's not a handbook for COVID that was out there to be able to follow, and so there was a lot of ambiguity of how things were going to get ran and if we were going to be able to play football at all. But yeah, like you said, I think everybody got to that point in time where, they thought it was about to be taken away from them, and there was a big hole in everybody's heart. But obviously you just getting back to just trusting God and that he's got a plan and that whatever happens, you're going to be taken care of, whether it's with football or not. I know that reassures me. So I hope it reassured a lot of other people.
What's your most memorable, proudest, just coaching moment in your young career so far?
I think my proudest moment, when it comes around every year, but when graduation comes around, that's one of my proudest moments, especially guys that they're the first in their families. First of all, to go to college and then to get a degree. Like there was a guy at Florida Tech, Aaron George, who that was like the one memory that hits me the hardest the most, because he was one of the first guys I really recruited in my career. And he came from Oakland, California. And now he is a nurse out in Oakland, California, and just being able to guide guys like that and see them finish and go on to do great things outside of football. That it makes me glow, man. Like that there's no other feeling is just to see those guys go off and be able to succeed after finishing up, especially something that's never been done in their families before. So that's when I'm the most proud in this career, is when that happens.
No,
that's really good. That's really good, Coach. I got to ask about the weight room. I noticed that there's been some missing photos, or some people missing in photos on your days. I've been laughing my butt off every time I see that roll up. I'm like, oh, he wasn't in the room today.
Yeah. We had some calling out going on social media, and it came down to miscommunication. I thought he was going to be coming in at 6:20, so I got there early. He thought I was going to be coming in a little bit later. And we ended up by ourselves in the weight room. So we had to take a couple jabs at each other.
Oh, Coach, I love it. Hey, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your openness. Every time I ask a question, you're an open resource, and you have a value set that is bigger than just perfect drill. But you run a darn good perfect drill. So I'm not gonna. Yeah. So anyway, Coach, I appreciate you very much. Thank you again. And
thanks, Coach. And like I said, we don't have a nice, warm, beachy, sandy beaches up here in Alaska, but we got some beaches, we got some coastline, and you're always welcome to come hang out.
If there's a beach, man, I might as well come up and check it out. So
it's a little colder, but
that's on the bucket list. That's on the bucket list.
We'll get you up here. We'll get you on a beach with the salmon, and we'll have some fun with it.
I love it. I appreciate you guys, man. Thanks so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Dude, how cool was it when he started talking about the player that became the nurse in Oakland?
I was going to say, he started talking about his glow, and then I noticed you and me our smiles just got bigger and bigger as well, because we could just feel, we could feel his happiness. As coaches, we can all relate to that, seeing our guys go on and do bigger and better things. Awesome.
I can't express that enough. His emphasis on, let's talk football first really quick. His emphasis on details. He started going off. Like he started talking about all the details of the receiver stance and the release and the stem. And I was like, I want to run perfect play right now, or perfect drill right now. Put me out there. But the details and the demand for details in a program coming from the head coach and the offensive coordinator trickling down into the position room. Boy, if you had to sum up tonight's talk, details.
Absolutely. And like you said, and pointing it back to about the head coach, I thought one of the big things he said too is that the head coach allows, each position coach to be the head coach of their room, so they can kind of create their own little culture identity within their position group, but also it's all aligned towards, what the head coach wants. But I think it's a great opportunity for those position coaches to kind of get to run the show a little bit and, not feel like they're being micromanaged by any means. And I thought that was huge.
I'll tell you what, as a head coach, that can be hard sometimes. And I've actually probably been accused of that. It's hard, especially if you're like a control guy and you're young and you feel like, oh, it's me, man. And that's such a hard thing to shake. And it's really refreshing to hear a coach in a program coached by, you said Coach Walden's 30 is what we said?
Young. He's in his young 30s or so. I mean, he's okay. Young.
So when you see a young guy on an up-and-coming program, empowering his position coaches, it's inspirational. On the inspiration to, I thought Coach Silvoy's emphasis on his faith, on Christ, on something bigger than ball. Boy, you can't miss that.
Like you said, the most important thing was their identity as individuals. When you're talking about their players, that comes above all else. And we spoke to him about, identifying identities in your room and personalities and things. And he simply, he's the most important thing is them as individuals. Because like you said, football is going to end. Sadly, you and I both know it's going to come to an end and quicker than you think. So if you don't got your life figured out outside of football, it's going to make things real tough when that day comes. So I thought that was awesome too.
Man, the lessons of this game continue to be amazing. Well, one thing we can't not talk about, eating together. Yes. And the importance of team meals. And we know COVID has put a dent in that, but for him to be like, yo, this is the thing we miss. I'm like, right now, I'm like, as soon as the school district allows us, we're doubling down. We're going to have team meals. That's got to be that much more of an important, crucial part of what we do together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like I said, just being able to sit down at the table and be able to talk shop or, just mess around and create those relationships and build, trust between each other, just from getting to know, your guys better. In that scenario, like I said, removing yourselves from football a little bit and being able to talk life and build relationships. Can't say enough about how important that is and excited to get that back.
Coach Silvoy is one of my heroes out there because I know he's coaching the right way for the right reasons. Seems like he's in the right spot right now. So I wish all the best of luck to the governors. The governors.
The governors.
Big Governors
fan.
Awesome episode. Super fun. I don't know what we got next. We got a bunch of interviews on tap. Stick around to the pod. There'll be another one out. I think today is Monday.
Could be.
Yeah, I think today is Monday, May 2nd. And otherwise we have
listen to the talk.
Yeah, there's some good stuff going on. So anyway, hey, we appreciate you guys as usual. Catch us next time. We are the Backups. I'm Timbo B. Davis, and I coach football, and he is
Connor B. Feckley, and I coach football.
It's convenient. This is a football podcast with coaches. Word.